AutoLine After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, solutions for your journey.
Gary.
John, so you are not in your usual spot. You are somewhere else. Tell us where you're at and why you're there.
I'm in the very tippy top part of Lake Huron on an island called Mackinac Island. I'm up here for a big policy conference. All the top politicians and business people and philanthropic people and media get together for a big confab up here. And it's a cool place. No cars are allowed on the island. So if I open the door to my porch here in the hotel room, you'll hear the clippity clop, clop, clop of horses going by and bicycles. And that's the only way to get around on the island. It's a step back in time, which I find highly amusing because I'm up here to talk all about the future of where the auto industry is going on a place where there are no cars.
And I happened to be up there 3 weeks ago, just on vacation, and the clippity clop clop of horses also leave the results of the clippity clop clop of horses, which is rather startling to a suburban kid. Well, okay, we're going to talk all about the auto industry, as you said today, and I found this remarkable statistic. Well, not statistic, a date. June 1st, 1981. And that is when General Motors opened the Bowling Green plant to make Corvettes. And it had been an abandoned Chrysler industrial air conditioner plant that they turned that into. And so one of the things that I'd sort of like to explore with our guests, and we have a robust group of them, is
Blue Ribbon Panel.
Blue Ribbon. Should Corvette be a brand unto itself? So let's bring them on in and start with that. So Alisa Priddle from MotorTrend, Todd Lassa, who is contributing editor to Autoweek now, Sam Abuelsamid. Sam, I screw up your name every time. So of course I screwed up Alisa's name before the show started, so yours is more difficult. But with Guidehouse Insights, so welcome one and all.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Good to be Sam, here. Pronounce your last name so the audio will get it right.
Sam Abuelsamid.
So there you go. All right. So okay, let's start. Alisa, you're big on products. Should Corvette be its own brand?
Well, I mean, it's such a funny question because many of us probably remember that there were many years where every time we would write about Corvette, if we didn't call it the Chevy Corvette, we would get like a nasty note or phone call from a GM PR person saying, Corvette is not its own brand. Please make sure you always call it Chevy, because they were really trying to boost the Chevy thing. But the world has changed a lot lately, because now everyone's trying to make sub-brands out of popular names or even new names. I mean, you've got Hyundai took Ioniq and made it a sub-brand, and Jeep has turned Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer, that whole family, into its own brand. And Jaguar Land Rover has just gone completely bonkers, that they're not even Land Rover anymore. They're just a series of 4 brands: Defender, Discovery, Jaguar, and Land Rover as a brand, not a company. So I don't know. I mean, it's making things confusing, I think, for us on the industry side, the corporate side. But I honestly think when it comes down to the consumer, that they are just always going to just call it the Vet or the Ioniq or the whatever. And they actually don't care if it's its own brand.
Sam?
Yeah, I agree with what Alisa said. I think, most consumers don't really care. Today, Dodge, split off Ram as a separate brand, back 12, 13 years ago now. And most people still call it Dodge Ram, but it doesn't matter. As long as they know where to find it, that's the main thing. And, they know what the products are. I think the brands have become a lot less important. Although, I think we're going to continue to see a shifting around, because as you said, Alisa, especially with EVs, most OEMs have created these EV sub brands. Like Mercedes has the EQ, Audi's got e-tron, and Hyundai's got Ioniq. But it's going to be interesting, as we gradually shift towards everything being electric, then those particular sub brands start to lose their meaning. So maybe we might end up going back again to the original brands, or maybe creating some new brands like Genesis, for example. Genesis started off as part of Hyundai and then got spun out into its own brand.
And to that point, Genesis was originally it launched as a model within Hyundai in, I think, the 2008 model year. And if it hadn't been for the impending Great Recession, it probably would have been its own brand, like Lexus was launched as its own brand some 28 years earlier. I think consumers should care whether GM splits Corvette off from Chevrolet, because it might make it easier for GM to up the price on the Chevrolet Corvette, which, while it's been the Chevrolet Corvette, has always been kind of compared as a very much affordable Porsche 911 competitor, or even half-priced or quarter-priced Ferrari. I think in the end probably will be broken off, especially if GM decides to go back into Europe, as it might with electric Cadillacs like the Celestiq, and have dealerships in Europe that sell Cadillac and Corvette, but maybe not Chevrolet.
What's your take, John?
I would say GM's losing money or leaving money on the table. Absolutely, Porsche has pointed the way of what they can do with the Corvette brand. The purists were horrified when they went with SUVs, Porsche, and Porsche's laughing all the way to the bank. I mean, it is an unbelievably profitable brand. In fact, if it had not done that, Porsche likely would have been out of business today. And so Corvette can look at it, and we know they're looking at doing an electric crossover or SUV that they're going to build in Lansing. So we're going to see them test the waters. But the Corvette brand is golden. Look at all the crap Ford took by naming the Mach-E a Mustang Mach-E, and it more than doubled Mustang sales. So look, why is a car company in business? To make money. And I think expanding the product line with Corvette is just going to make GM more money. And if they do it right, it will not dilute the brand at all. Just like Porsche is still able to sell 911s, no problem, people lining up to buy them, even though those same customers would never touch, say, like a Cayenne.
And a lot more people might be willing to spend $150,000 to $200,000 for just a Corvette than for a Chevrolet Corvette.
So that's why consumers ought to worry about it. And but added point that GM, always being GM, loves brands and sub brands, and having it pared down in North America to Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, and Cadillac just isn't enough for GM. It's I guess you had Bright Drop now and Cruise and whatever else, but they would love to have another brand. And to John's point, that would not be good for consumers, because the affordable Corvette might be on its way out.
When the mid-engine,
go ahead, Alisa.
When the mid-engine Corvette came out, remember, and they said it was going to be $60,000. And again, that was because it was a Chevy, and they said we had to have the affordable sports car. So I agree with everyone who's saying you can probably up the price of your sports car if you're not sort of shackled to the Chevy affordable brand name. The other thing is, if you do have your own brand, if they ever wanted to spin it off or an IPO or anything, that certainly helps pave the way for something like that. And to Todd's point about brands, I mean, GM did not like going from 8 brands to 4, and they're inching their way back up again. So start a pool as to when they're back at 8 brands again.
Yeah, you can count Wuling and Baojing, I believe. And just one other bit of history, of course, going way back, when the Chevrolet Corvette launched as a Motorama car, you also had within a couple of years a 2-seat Buick Wildcat 1 and Wildcat 2. It had the Oldsmobile F88, I believe it was called, and the Pontiac Bonneville special. So, I mean, at that point, each division potentially had its own sports car on the way.
I think, a key thing to making this work, for GM, if they do want to split off into more brands, separate some of these vehicles out, is to avoid the problem they did in the past where every single brand, when they had in 2007, 2008, when they had 8 brands, almost aside from Hummer, most of them had all the same vehicles from an entry level compact car to, full size SUVs. If they can keep some focus, keep each of the brands smaller. Like you look at Stellantis today, Ram, has the full size pickup. They will eventually get a midsize and maybe a compact pickup, and they have the ProMaster vans. But they're not trying to replicate, at least so far, all of the SUVs that you have in the Jeep lineup. And, so they're trying to keep each of the brands focused on a particular segment, then I think you can make more brands work in that way.
Well, and Sam, that is, I think, largely a result of Chrysler years ago going to a dealership plan where almost all dealers at least in the major cities across the U.S. have all the brands. So it's all Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, and Jeep. So you don't have the dealers saying, "Hey, where's our Corvette?" or "Where's our, whatever."
Right. So John, last week, last Thursday on the show, we talked about extensively about Ford Capital Markets Day, and then after the show was ended, lo and behold, Jim Farley and Elon Musk went on Twitter Spaces and announced that starting next year, the Ford electric vehicles are going to have an adapter, a Tesla developed adapter, which will allow the Ford EVs to charge at the Tesla supercharger network. So what's your take on that?
Well, look, it's turned out to be a bigger deal than I thought. When I heard the announcement, I went, well, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously Jim and Elon have got a palsy-walsy relationship going here. And then lo and behold, I mean, it took the media by storm. The stock shot up 7%. I mean, on one hand, Farley must be pulling his hair out. Here he's doing all this corporate restructuring. He's, created Ford Pro. They're getting into the digital age. They've got 600,000 subscribers of their software. But he makes one announcement that they're going to be able to use the charger infrastructure from Tesla, and the stock takes a big jump, more than any of the other things that he's ever done. But I think it's a game changer. And in terms of the public perception of Ford, especially Ford's EVs, I like I said, it turned out to be a bigger story than I thought it would be.
So let me ask you this before the others chime in on this development. So one of the aspects of this is that, okay, not only do you need the adapter, so right now the vehicles have the CCS system, and Tesla cleverly has what they call the North American standard. They just basically said it's a standard, and maybe it'll become a standard now. But there's also a software component to this. So it would seem to me that when someone pulls in with their F-150 Lightning or their Mustang Mach-E or their E-Transit van, and they plug into that supercharger, there's going to be a lot of data that's going to be sent to Tesla. So do you see, I mean, so we know that in the Inflation Reduction Act, that there was a payment that will go to charging network. So Elon will make money off of the government for that, for opening it up. But there's that data. And John, you're big on data monetization. So what does this mean for Tesla? And is it a deterrent to Ford?
I don't know if that it's a deterrent to Ford, but it's definitely a coup for Tesla, because now it doesn't only get a chance to collect data on its customer base, but increasingly it's going to be on Ford's base. And if Ford's cutting a deal with Tesla, I got to believe others are in line. Other automakers are probably tweeting to Elon right now, because that's the easiest way to get a hold of him, is through Twitter, saying, hey, me too. How about our cars on your system? Because everybody recognizes that Tesla has by far the most reliable, the most widespread, and the most cleverly placed charging infrastructure in the country. last year sometime, and I wish I had written down the name of one of our viewers. We were talking about the Tesla charging system here on Autoline After Hours, and one of the comments was, why doesn't the government just give all the money to Tesla and let it build out the charging infrastructure? And I laughed and I thought, well, that's a funny comment. No, I really think they're right. We should just give all the money to Tesla and let them build it out.
All right. So one of the other three of you, your heads are going to explode when John just said that. So Sam, let's start with you.
All right. So first of all, I don't want to give all the money to Tesla. I don't mind if they get some money, for building building additional infrastructure. And to your comment, Gary, about them getting government money, they're not getting money for people using the chargers. They can get money from the NEVI program for installing new chargers that have CCS capability on them. So those existing chargers, they're not getting any government money for that. But I think that this was a fascinating move by Ford. When Ford announced the Mach-E, one of the big aspects of that, and that is subsequently was part of e-Transit and Lightning as well, was the whole Ford Pass charging network. They were trying to replicate what Tesla did, with this widespread charging network by aggregating multiple networks together through a single interface in the vehicle. And they were the first to support the plug and charge standard. And so they were trying to make it as simple as it is to charge a Tesla, where you just pull up, plug in your car into the supercharger, and it starts charging, and you get billed. You have your payment information all set up in your Tesla account. You just get billed. You don't have to juggle an EVgo and Electrify America and Blink and ChargePoint account. It's all in one place. Unfortunately for Ford, those charging networks failed them miserably, especially Electrify America. They have done a terrible job with reliability. And when you talk to EV customers, EV owners, they will tell you the worst part of owning a non-Tesla EV is the lack of reliability in those fast chargers. And, ultimately Farley, said, look, as we expand the number of EVs that we're selling, this is not good enough. They've tried to work with the charging providers, and they have just not stepped up and done the job as they need to be as good as Tesla. And so they said, fine, we'll just go to Tesla. And, I think, a key part of this is not just having the adapter for the Tesla connector, and also as part of that, the next gen vehicles will also integrate the Tesla connector right into the vehicle. So you won't even need an adapter. But that integration into the Ford Pass app, so that, again, you in your Ford EV, you just put your payment information in the Ford Pass app one time, and then when you go plug into a supercharger, it just charges your account. It charges your credit card, and you don't have to mess around with anything. And that's going to be a key component of this. And hopefully what this will do when these other companies, when EA and EVgo and everybody else sees all the Ford customers going over and using the superchargers instead of using their chargers, maybe that competition will spur them on to actually do something to improve the reliability and availability of their chargers.
Great point. Hey, quick interjection here too, because an insider up here at the conference that I'm at told me this Ford Tesla deal has been 2 years in the making.
Wow.
Well,
So Alisa, what do you think about that going on?
Yeah, well, I mean, the big winner is going to be the customer for sure, because I mean, as Sam said, and anyone who's tried to charge an EV knows that's the unreliability, but it's also just the number of chargers too, because under this deal, I think the Ford people have access to about 12,000 chargers. And I think the whole other network they have, the non-Tesla, is less than 12,000. So they're more than doubling the places they can go to charge, in addition to the reliability of the charge. So Tesla, I mean, there's been some talk that now will Tesla lose some sales, because a lot of people were buying Teslas just for the charge system, and almost rightfully so. But I do think that any small drop in actual sales because of this, because someone can actually go and get another brand, another vehicle that they want, I think Tesla still makes out okay, because they just will gain so many more people using their charging network. They can take all of that revenue to just continue to expand it, so it does become this pervasive network, and maybe it becomes a business on its own that becomes almost more profitable than Tesla, the way they keep discounting all the prices on the Teslas. But they still have some logistics to work out too, because Ford made a big deal of the bi-directional charging, and I don't think that you can do that with Teslas. So in 2025, when the new models come out that only have the Tesla port, I'm not sure what that does to people.
We actually don't know that yet. I've gotten conflicting stories from people at Ford. Some say it'll be only the Tesla port. Some say it'll be both. But apparently Ford has not finalized that yet. So it might actually end up being both CCS and the Tesla port.
Well, and same with me, I'd heard both, but then the latest was that it was only going to be the North American one, which again, then they'll have to figure out, if that is the case, what to do with the bi-directional charging. So there's a lot of balls in play. And I also totally agree that it's going to make every other automaker really look long and hard at trying to come up with the same deal.
All right, Todd, throw a little realism on this.
Well, I remember when the IRA, the Green Deal, that the Biden plan to expand EV recharging across the country came out, and I wrote a piece for Autoweek on it just after the Wall Street Journal spoke with some Tesla owners who were mad that they would now have to be in those, and I think it was something like 7,500 superchargers across the country that would be available to all EVs. I don't quite understand how the Ford Tesla thing is that much different from this. That Tesla owners were kind of like, now I'm going to have to wait even longer to get my car recharged. It's still not like going to a Shell or Mobil station. But if the Biden administration wants 500,000 chargers across the country by, I think it's 2030. And, I'm wondering how long we go before there's just one standard. Sure, Tesla has it right, and they've got the goods on a reliable recharging system. But if you really want to electrify America, and that's lowercase, not talking about the company name, you're going to have to make these available to everybody. So you drive up in your Rivian to any one of these chargers, and you can plug it in and recharge it.
Well, CHAdeMO already went away. I mean, we basically in North America, I mean, everyone's trying to get to one standard. But in the interim, kind of when Todd was talking about Tesla, people getting upset, I mean, are we going to see fisticuffs when a Tesla person, shows up and there's a Ford, a Jag, and a Cadillac Lyriq sitting there, and they can't get their Tesla into the Tesla supercharger?
Yeah, in my piece, I likened it to the beaches in Southern California where certain surfers have lay claim to the waves, that if you come in to a beach that's not yours with a surfboard, you're going to get beat up. So, you might see that. You're right, Alisa, that the fisticuffs may be on the way.
I just think this sort of this.
What'd you say, John?
I said, can't we all live in peace?
Yeah.
No.
But this sort of thing
America.
This goes back to sort of the Corvette thing, and there were some intimations of this, that, okay, so let's say that you spent 80 grand for your Corvette, and you drive into the service bay, and right next to you is a 3-year-old beat up Chevy Trax. How are you going to feel about that? Probably not so good. You wanted a little more special treatment, okay, to have the separation. So you buy a Tesla because you have the opportunity to use the supercharger, and then there's a Ford e-Transit van in front of you. I mean, how are you going to feel about that? Probably not so good. But
I'm not quite sure I agree with that analogy, Gary, because if I'm pulling up into a Chevrolet service bay next to a 3-year-old beat up Trax, I know that it's because I'm not paying a Porsche 911 price for my Chevrolet Corvette. I mean, that's the trade-off, isn't it?
Until it's its own brand.
Well, that
Yeah, I mean,
I'll be paying, of course, the 911 prices.
Right, but this is why I think it may become its own brand, because it will allow this special treatment that it otherwise can't necessarily achieve. And so for somebody who's paying that kind of money, they probably deserve a little extra, right?
Yeah, I've long been in the Miata camp of affordable sports cars anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter to me.
So sort of talking, one of the things we don't talk about a great deal on the show, sometimes we do, but is the commercial truck space. And there was actually a rather significant development this week when Daimler and Toyota got together. So Daimler has a brand in Japan of commercial trucks called Fuso, and Toyota has Hino. They're going to merge those two companies, and Toyota and Daimler are going to collaborate on various technological things related to connected, automated, shared, and electric vehicle technology. And this gets to the whole point of what's going on in the auto industry right now, and I think it's sort of important. And I want to read part of a quote from Martin Dahm, who's the CEO of Daimler Truck. And he said, "As we are accelerating towards zero emissions, there's one big challenge, and this is the required funding. The transformation of our industry means we have to find several new drive technologies at the same time: batteries, hydrogen-based fuel cells, and potentially also hydrogen internal combustion engines. This is quite a stretch, even for the leading companies in our industry. And there's only one way to make this parallel tech development work economically: scale. Scale is key. It is absolutely essential to leverage investments and to spread them across a larger base. And today we're making a bold move in this respect." Okay, so here is the guy who is in charge of Daimler Truck. He's not the guy in charge of Mercedes-Benz cars, but he's talking to the guy who's in charge of Toyota, all of Toyota. And this whole issue, and I want to get your impressions of the question of scale. And so, John, is the Ford Tesla thing an intimation of perhaps a way for both of these companies to get more scale? Are we going to see some consolidation in the industry that will go beyond these partnerships to get more scale? Where's the money going to come from for all of these things that Dom listed?
Yeah, look, unquestionably, there's going to be a lot more consolidation in this industry from top to bottom, not just amongst the automakers, especially the tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers, particularly those who are involved in anything to do with internal combustion engines or powertrain technology. I mean, their market's going down, and it will continue to go down from here until the day they go out of business. And so you're going to see a lot of consolidation there. We've seen massive amounts of consolidation in the retail side for the last 20 years. We're going to continue to see that. And to your point here, Gary, very interesting that Daimler and Toyota getting together. The heavy truck business can be quite profitable, but to speak of scale, what are we now? I don't know if any of you guys know a good heavy truck year, class, say 6 through 8. We're talking what, 300,000 vehicles?
Between 3 and 400,000.
How much?
Between 3 and 400,000 in the U.S. The
Yeah.
Japanese market, where Hino and Fuso are focused, is much smaller than that.
Right. So just using the U.S. as an example, pre-COVID, a good year for light duty vehicles, 17 million, compared to a good year, 300,000 to 400,000 on the heavy side. So yeah, for them to achieve scale is all that much more difficult. It makes a whole lot of sense, and especially to the point where you quoted Mr. Dom there, Gary. Internal combustion engine, got to improve that. Diesel side primarily, got to go electric, got to go fuel cell. And I'm surprised to hear him talking about maybe hydrogen internal combustion engine. But yeah, if you got to spread your bets, it's a whole lot more affordable to do it with a partner.
And remember,
I
was going to say, remember this example, as Sam pointed out, this is just for the Japan and the Southeast Asia market. So they're not talking about doing this in the U.S. or anywhere else at this point. And they're focused on that part of the world, and they're really trying to keep China at bay. So this is kind of a bit of a regional move. And also, these two companies were already, kind of working together. Daimler already had 89% stake in Mitsubishi Fuso, and which is the Toyota side of it. And also the Toyota side had this emissions scandal. So it's had, all kinds of issues. So this is kind of a little bit of a deal that addresses some regional issues, some sort of scandal issues, some sort of, it's a logical move to try and shore up what they're trying to do in this part of the world. And then, maybe if this works out really well, it does spread to other parts of the world. But certainly they just don't have the money to go into EVs and hydrogen the way that they need to with these companies in this part of the world.
Well,
Yeah.
and Daimler Truck split off from Mercedes-Benz cars a few years ago, right? I mean, so
last year, I think.
Last year, was it? And it almost slid by me. And at the time, I wondered, well, I thought that Class 8 semi-tractor trucks were hugely profitable, even at those relatively small sales numbers. Sorry about the dogs there. Why would you sell that off, get rid of the highly profitable trucks? But obviously, seeing what was ahead, that they would have to go from smoky diesel engines to clean hydrogen fuel cell or electric trucks made a big difference. I mean, the consolidation too happened has been going on for quite some time, with Volvo trucks having long ago split off from Volvo, buying some American nameplates, and with Daimler trucks owning Freightliner, and I think they bought Ford heavy trucks some
Sterling
20 years ago. Sterling, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's it's not that different from the passenger car side if you look at Chrysler alone in the last 25 years, and Ford for that matter, and its PAG and all of that. So I mean, it really makes sense given. I think this deal, even if it's isolated for the time being to Asia Pacific, is probably going to expand if Daimler and Toyota trucks get along together well.
Yeah, I mean, for automakers that are making 5 to 10 million vehicles a year, like Volkswagen and Toyota and others, the other top OEMs, the investment required to make the transition to electrification is enormous enough, and they're having a hard enough time with getting scale there, for companies that are, selling, maybe 100, 200,000 vehicles a year. It's way tougher. And, for the truck makers, they've, regulators have really, much of their focus until the last few years has been their attention's been focused on light duty vehicles for electrification. But over the last several years, regulators have really started to pay more attention to the medium and heavy duty market. And, now's the time when we're really starting to see that shift. Most of these companies are developing electric trucks. But, the whole scale question, when there's not a lot of differentiation between electric motors and between batteries, developing, your own it's hard to justify that. So it makes sense, that we're going to see a lot more, at the very least, component sharing between these companies. Even if they don't fully merge, you'll see them doing partnerships to share electric powertrain systems and battery management systems and other components. And John, to what you were saying about hydrogen, Toyota, obviously they've been a leader on the fuel cell side, and over the last couple of years, they've actually done quite a bit with hydrogen internal combustion. They've had a couple of Corolla race cars in Japan with hydrogen internal combustion, and they're, companies are starting to take more of a look at that, especially in the truck market, as a potential alternative to fuel cells. So I suspect we will start to see some of that in some of these markets in the next few years.
Whatever the truck makers do, let's hope they have one refueling standard. Okay.
All right. Hey, look, we should take a quick commercial break right now. Give a shout out to our good friends at Bridgestone, and we'll be back in just a jiffy.
How do Bridgestone tires stop shorter on what roads? It's their HydroTrack technology. But you don't have to know how the science works, just where the brake is. What really matters is their Bridgestone.
Okay, so since we're at the midpoint of the year, I want to try something a little different. We haven't done this for a long time, and that's to do like a lightning round as we talk about the major brands in the industry. And so just each of you give like a quick impression when I tell you the name of this company, but do it orderly. Just don't start shouting at each other and so on. Okay, so the first one, and I'll give like what my sense of it is that, okay, the first one, Acura. And I'm still confused. Is it a performance brand or a luxury brand? Next.
It's always been a performance brand. Well, at least since they turned the Legend into the RL. I mean, you look at both
Lightning. I got to get to Volkswagen.
Acura is the Oldsmobile of Japan.
Affordable performance.
Yeah, slightly premium performance.
A brand that's still trying to figure out what it is.
It's taken a long time. Alfa Romeo. I think the Tonale is going to change things, but maybe not enough.
Fantastic to drive. Just a driver's car.
Beautiful to look at. If they fix the quality, the future could be bright.
Haven't driven it, but I don't think they're going anywhere beyond where they've already been. Europe only.
If there wasn't a Dodge Hornet, I think the Tonale would be much more successful in North America.
Okay, Audi. It's gorgeous inside and out, but I can't figure out why is its EVs seemingly not going anywhere.
They started off with a vehicle, the original e-tron that was basically a conversion of their existing platform, not as efficient as it needed to be. Still a very nice vehicle to drive, but as they start to introduce vehicles on the PPE platform next year, hopefully we'll start to see a shift and they become much more competitive.
Yeah, because right now they're just like you say, they're nice, but they're not the complete benchmark they were. Even the Q8 e-tron that I just drove with, so that's the flagship. The naming is confusing a little bit to people still, and it's not neck snapping performance. Now, I mean, we'll still see a performance version coming, but they seem slightly sedate.
I'm just guessing here, but I'm going to say that Audi EVs are going nowhere because VW EVs are.
No.
Explain.
Well, I mean, I think the ID4 has sold fairly well so far, relatively for an EV, and a lower price and easier availability. I don't know.
Audi has not caught where Tesla is with its digital experience. And until they get that straightened out, they're not going to compete with the upscale EV buyer, especially in China.
Okay, BMW. Now, it seems to me that on the one hand, they're pushing electrics fairly hard, but on the other hand, they're trying to continue to appeal to their petrol-based fans. And so I just wonder how this sorts out going forward.
I think their approach to flexible platforms, I actually initially thought, like for the i4, the i7, the i5, I thought might be a mistake, but those vehicles have actually turned out to be much more energy efficient than was expected. And they're actually really good, really, really good. So I think they're actually in a pretty good place right now. And we'll see if they can really build on that when the Neue class vehicles start to launch in 2025. If those are as good as they look like they might be, they could be really strong in the premium EV market.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting more information on the new class, which is kind of pulling up a name from the old from years ago. But anyway, and I do know I'm actually going to Munich in a couple of weeks to learn more about it. And I think Sam might be right that they're finally sorted themselves out. And so I really want to hear what the path is going forward.
I would say I hate their styling. I'm sorry. It's too polarizing for me. Other people love it. God bless them all, but I don't like it. And then secondly, they're not doing, in my opinion, in the United States, nearly as good a job as marketing and advertising their EVs as Mercedes is. I think Mercedes is setting the standard for how you present your electric fleet to your customers. And BMW, I believe, is woefully behind Mercedes in that.
Todd?
I'm gonna have to wait for Elisa's report because I'm way behind on what they're doing. But I would just say that maybe they're not, despite the advantages of the performance advantages that EVs have in certain ways, that maybe BMW is not transmitting that message from its ICEs to EVs. I don't know.
Okay, Buick. Todd, you mentioned earlier the Wildcat concept. Now it's a brand that is just all crossovers, one of which is built in the United States, which strikes me as being odd.
Yeah, but it's using Wildcat design. So the new vehicles that are coming out, so you've got now the Encore GX and the new Envista. So those are two little tiny guys, but they use Wildcat styling. And I actually think that they look pretty good and they're relatively affordable. And I think that they might sell a ton of these things for people who actually want a fun and, fairly decent looking little car.
They may have gotten past the point where people old enough to know what Buicks had become by the 1990s, those buyers that were not potential buyers because they didn't want to drive an old car, even if they were old, they've gone beyond that. Now they're reaching a younger buyer. I don't know. I mean, at least looking at the commercials, that would seem to be the case. But yeah, you remember when I think it was the late 90s or early aughts, Buick advertised that they were still building cars while everybody else had moved on to trucks. China is the reason Buick survived past 2009, 2010. And so it's not really a surprise that most Buicks are made in Asia, and a couple of them in China at least. If they don't pick up sales a lot, and they're not bad, they dropped a lot 2 years ago and came up quite a bit last year in sales. That could be a China only brand going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the new design language looks good, but we'll see if people actually buy any of them, especially as they shift to electric.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the new ones look good, the Envista especially. I don't know if it's moved the needle. I think, if I'm right, Cadillac is now outselling Buick in the U.S. or very close to. And that's not just because Cadillac's doing so well. It's not. It's because Buick continues to sink.
Yeah, but they don't promote it either. Yeah, I mean, they
perfect segue.
Okay, Cadillac.
Perfect segue to Cadillac. So let's go to Cadillac. And it seems to me, so John, to your point of what's going on there, I mean, it strikes me that brand is still based on Escalade, and the fact that Lyric has been so late in coming, it's really causing problems, I think, for that brand.
Yeah, totally agree. Look, GM has thrown a lot of resources at Cadillac over the last 2 decades. It hasn't moved the needle. They're and they've done great vehicles. I mean, I'm sure all of you have driven the V series, especially CT5, CT4. They're terrific. A lot of enthusiasts consider them as good as any BMW M series. It hasn't moved the needle, not much. And so to me, going electric is their one shot at smashing the paradigm as to what Cadillac represents amongst the public. And to your point, Gary, I mean, the Lyric, it looks terrific out on the road. If they had built them at scale and gotten them out there already, what a game changer it would have been, not just for Cadillac, but for General Motors.
Yeah, the
think
rollout has been painfully slow, and that has hurt them tremendously. The one little high five I have to give them is the Celestiq. I just think it's such a bold and audacious move to have a 300,000 plus Cadillac that you can, completely bespoke, handmade. And I think there are a lot of people out there that really want something that looks different on the road, and they want to support, the great American vehicles, luxury vehicles of the past, and are going to pick one of these up and customize it with like your guitar strings worked into the dash, or your cat's whiskers, or like anything you want to put in it. And so I give them props for doing it. I realize that's not what's going to save Cadillac, but it certainly makes people, I think, kind of do a little bit of a head turn.
Yeah, I agree with John and Alisa. I think, to John's point about the V Series, the people interested in those cars, enthusiasts, were a very, very tiny minority. And BMW, on the other hand, while has a great following among enthusiasts, also has what used to be called yuppies, people who saw it as a non-Mercedes sort of luxury. Cadillac never got there. They could get there with electrics. I just anecdotally, a friend back in Frostburg, Maryland, who has driven a Tesla Model Y for the last 3 years or so. And when I talked to him about the Cadillac Lyriq, he said that might be my next my next electric. So, they certainly have messed up the launch on that car, and I guess they could still possibly pull it out, though. They keep working on it. Also agree on the Celestiq. That's quite a standout.
I think the big problem for all the GM brands right now, as they make the transition to electric and software-defined vehicles, is execution. They're not executing. They're not able to build the vehicles. The software is buggy, and if they can't get that sorted out quickly, they are going to have a big problem across the board with all four brands. Because Hummer software has been very problematic. The Lyriq is, the software has been one of the big challenges with Lyriq. And if they can't get that fixed as they start to launch the high volume EV models, they're going to be in big trouble.
All right, so we've got 13 minutes to go through more than 13 brands. So, all right, Chrysler, and I'll just put a question mark, and that's it.
Yeah, call us back in 2025 when they launch something.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. 2025, the Airflow. It won't be that called the Airflow, but anyway, I don't know. Ralph Gilles is super excited about the design of it. Can't wait to actually see how it turns out.
Dodge makes lots of money on muscle cars, but I wonder if that translates to EVs.
We'll see. We'll know in a year or so. I mean, potentially they could be great. They're trying to do something different with EVs, and if the customers will come along, then they could be in good shape.
Chrysler and Dodge are becoming nichier and nichier, and the only brands that matter really are Ram and Jeep.
Okay, John, now this is a company that you ought to adore. So Fisker, it's got a great design. It's got an asset-light strategy. It's comparatively good price. But my question to you is, will people buy them?
Good question, Gary. I mean, they're going through production hell right now. Remember, they're going asset light. Magna's doing everything for them. They can't build cars. And
it's
Fisker,
the software.
Is that right, Sam?
Yeah,
it's the software.
It's the software.
Very interesting. So, and that's what Fisker's doing, right? Not Magna.
Yep.
So you got that. They're burning through cash. Henrik came out and said, "Hey, I'd welcome a partner here." That tells me they got big problems going forward.
I'm wondering whether the gestation period that Tesla went through the last 12, 14, 15 years, where it took till 2019, 2020 maybe, before it posted an annual profit. That is very hard for any startup car company to do, going back to Kaiser and Tucker. And I just wonder whether it's too late for anybody beside Tesla to have that sort of success and have to wait if you add that number of years on to any of these other companies, wait until well into the 2030s for that to take off, even if everybody's buying EVs by then.
Okay, we're going to skip forward because we talked about them a lot. Genesis, I think it may become a bigger story than Lexus.
I think based on the EGMP platform and what Hyundai Motor Group is doing with electric, yeah, Genesis could be really well positioned in the next few years.
Totally
Yeah,
agree.
I was going to say they still have beautiful design and a lot of value.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem to be taking the long, slow, process. They are growing it slowly and being patient about very minute sales in the U.S. Until they get all the product in place and slowly build its luxury cred, which Lexus was able to do fairly quickly, but again, that doesn't happen overnight for Lexus or for Hyundai's luxury brand.
Yeah, although
Lexus-
Genesis has grown in about double the speed of Lexus.
Yeah,
in product and sale.
Genesis should scare the hell out of every luxury brand because look at just their sales in the US, which are decent with barely any dealers. Wait till they line up more dealers.
Okay, moving on to Honda. It strikes me that if you see any Honda ads, you think it's a truck company. What happened to the Accord and Civic?
They sell themselves.
Yeah, I was just at a Honda event this morning at M1 Concourse, and I think we're going to be hearing a lot more from Honda on the electrification side over the next couple of years. And I think starting with the Prologue, then rolling on to their own stuff. It could be interesting. The whole Afeela thing with Sony is also going to be fascinating to watch.
Totally agree. And just to build on that, them deciding to stick in with Formula One, the fact that they created this whole new software group within the company, the fact that they teamed up with General Motors to get their EVs in faster. Something went wrong, I think, at Honda in just 3, 4, 5 years ago. And all of a sudden, it seems like they're getting their mojo back, but now they got to deliver. They're talking the right thing. Now we got to see what they deliver.
Well, and 3, 4, 5 years ago, when I was still living in the Detroit area, the big thing was the partnership between GM and Honda to do electrics. And it seems like, maybe that lit a fire under Honda engineers, and they said, "Hey, we need to start doing our own thing. We can't wait for GM to sort out its software." And so now they're on its way. It's always been remember a smaller company than Toyota or Nissan, for that matter, if you look at their product lineup. And so they're not exactly niche, but they're a little bit of a specialty. And I think Alisa's right that the Civic and the Accord probably sell themselves to a certain extent. And look at the fact that you can still buy a Civic with a manual transmission, even if it's down to 1 spec or 2 specs or something.
And next year you'll get a Civic hybrid as well. And this year you've got the Accord hybrid. So they are branching out a bit on those mainstay products.
Okay, we're going to skip Hyundai Infinity. Another. Anybody?
They look nice. They drive
Nothing
nice.
is happening this year.
Yeah. All right. Next
Again,
on
call
the
us
list.
at 25.
Okay. Yeah, everybody's in 25, Sam. I don't understand this. All right. So the next one on the list and is Jeep. And I want to give a shout out to one of our favorite guests on Autoline After Hours, Mark Allen, head of exterior design for Jeep, who has announced his retirement, which
what a loss.
Well, I did know that. Oh, yeah.
Today. Yeah, just announced it today.
Great designer.
Yeah. So,
he had the hardest job in design next to the Porsche 911 designer.
Yeah.
With the Jeep Wrangler, that is, with the Wrangler specifically.
Yeah.
Jeep has gotten off to a great start with their 4xe plug-in hybrids. They're doing really, really well, especially in the Wrangler. They expect this year that they're going to get to 50% penetration on that powertrain on the Wrangler. as they ramp it up more. Next year, they're going to start launching BEVs, and that's going to be really interesting. They're a brand that can sell within the Stellantis portfolio at a higher price point, and that could put them in a really good position launching those EVs.
It
And
could,
by
but I think
adding
Jeep. Go ahead, Alisa. Sorry.
I was going to say, by adding, so one of those electrics that he's talking about, the Recon, is kind of like an urban electric version of a Wrangler. So they're, it helps them buy time that the Wrangler can just stay as the plug-in hybrid for now. They don't have to go full electric because the Recon will sort of pick up some of that slack. And then they've got also the Wagoneer S, which is its code name. We still don't know the actual name of that vehicle, but that's like a Grand Cherokee sized, fully electric, but part of the Wagoneer family. So a lot of really interesting ways that they're just keep expanding the whole Jeep lineup.
So lately,
Let's go to John. We got to go fast.
Okay, real quick on Jeep. I think they're in trouble. I think Bronco has kicked their teeth in. Sales of the Cherokee collapsed. This is why the Belvedere plant is shuttered. They better do something new and fast and different. Maybe electric's the way to turn it around.
I was going to ask, actually, as part of my portion, whether you thought that the Bronco catching the Wrangler thing and sales was going to stick, or whether that's just temporary, whether that's just fashion.
Jeep is
I
in
vote
trouble.
stick. Everybody vote. Just vote. Yes or no.
Temporary.
Temporary.
I'm guessing temporary. John?
Jeep's got to prove to me that they can turn it around.
All right. Kia. I think it's a remarkable brand. I think it's just a
what a
remarkable
brilliant
job.
brand. Oh my gosh. They were always so far behind Hyundai. Now they're knocking on the door. They could surpass them. The styling has been brilliant. The fact that you can sell a $60,000 electric Kia just blows my mind. 5 years ago, we would have scoffed at the notion. Kudos to them. They're doing so much right.
I love the EV6, and I'm looking forward to the EV9.
And
EV9 is going to be a really important product for them.
I know that generations ago, the Hyundai Sonata was built in the Kia factory, with the Kia version. And so it probably should be no surprise that they have the quality and the manufacturing know-how. So I'm not too surprised.
Yeah, and
All right,
just
I'm gonna
nice
jump
job
ahead.
of differentiating. Just nice job of differentiating styling from Hyundai.
Yeah.
Okay. Jumping ahead. Lucid. Remarkable technology, stunning design, but breathtaking price.
And buggy.
Yeah, and again, execution problem. Trying to get them actually built and out the door to customers, and get the dollars in.
I saw my first one in the wild out here in Lancaster the other day, and it's a local car. I've seen it a couple of times. If they might have 5 or 6 driving around certain urban areas to make it look like they're selling some.
I just saw a chart that showed that Lucid is more patent dense than even Tesla is for its cars, which I found fascinating. And just this morning, I read the Saudi Foreign Investment Fund, or Sovereign Investment Fund, is putting another $3 billion into Lucid. And that was the big question mark. Would they have enough cash? I think the Saudis now own 60% of the company. It wouldn't surprise me if before it's all over, they own 100%.
I think that will be the ultimate result, is that they will own it outright.
And it'll always be a super high tech company, but it's just their first car. It's so beautiful, but it's pretty buggy. I mean, they still have a lot of things to work out.
But I guess to John's point, they need something to offset Aramco, right? In terms of the future.
All right, Todd, you're the only one who gets to answer this one, but answer it quickly. Mazda, does it have a future?
Not alone. No, they can't. They can't survive alone.
Agreed.
Okay, I'll skip Mercedes. Nissan. They consistently put out good vehicles, but it doesn't seem to be moving the needle.
Well, Nissan's coming off a near-death experience, right? The whole Carlos Ghosn thing threw that company into a tizzy. It looks like they're starting to turn things around from a revenue and a profit standpoint. Interestingly, They make more money in North America than anywhere else in the world right now. North America is literally keeping Nissan alive. So it's arguably the most important part of the company. But the jury's still out. Even though they're showing signs of improvement, can it stick?
They went for cheap materials and low price a couple of generations ago, and now they're trying to recover from that. That's going to be kind of tough.
The Aria might be the start of a turnaround.
Okay. Since we talked a little bit about Porsche before, we mentioned Ram before. Okay, Rivian. Is this going to become the official brand of REI members? And if so, is that a bad thing?
Yes and no. Yes, it will be the official brand of REI. I don't think that's a problem. If they can rein in their ambitions and focus and on the lifestyle vehicles and then the commercial vans, they could do okay.
REI is starting to close some of its stores, and go more mail orders. So where do you drive your Rivian if you don't have an REI store near you?
Well, they are expanding.
I think that's some problems outside of, in addition to the auto industry, including been kind of following their plant in Georgia, and they're getting a lot of legal backlash there, and that could throw some sticks in their wheels.
Okay, Subaru. I'd say there's no brand that knows its base better.
Yeah, very niche-y, knows exactly what they're doing, know how to market it, know how to give their people exactly what they want, and this, the styling on some of it, what's supposed to look like a hiking boot. I'm not a big fan of a lot of the look, but man, the people who buy them love them.
They've always been the SUV company for people who hate SUVs. So the only product that they have that doesn't do well is the Ascender.
As long as they keep bringing puppies to auto shows, I'm all for them.
Me too. Yep.
Yeah, them with Mazda and Mitsubishi. Mazda, Mitsubishi, Subaru, big question mark to me whether they can survive. They're all about 1 million a year in sales globally. Subaru is an American brand, essentially. It doesn't sell very well elsewhere in the world. I question whether they can make the transition.
And they
all need Toyota, and they all have deals going with Toyota. No, most of them have deals going with Toyota.
All right, so Toyota is the next one. And so when I was looking at Toyota, I found this number, which is sort of astonishing to me, that in Q1, it sold over 66,000 Camrys, okay? There is nothing that General Motors sold that doesn't have a box on the back that is near that, nor does Ford have anything without a box on the back that has sold that many. I think that that's sort of the thing that we don't pay enough attention to, that people are still buying good old internal combustion engine vehicles at volume, and Toyota's sitting there happy.
And they're selling. The new Prius is beautiful. I mean, they've got a lot of really good stuff. The Land Cruiser, the new Prius, the Tacoma, the Grand Highlander. We often have knocked them for a lot of semi-bland vehicles, but they're turning that side of it around as well.
And they're selling more and more hybrids. A quarter of all their sales now are hybrids, and that's just going to keep growing. And their whole strategy around hybrids versus EVs rationally makes all the sense in the world, but unfortunately consumers are not rational. So they're responding to that. And the announcement yesterday that they're going to build the 3-row electric SUV in Kentucky in 25 is part of that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Todd.
I was going to say the Land Cruiser is to Toyota what the Corvette is to Chevrolet, by the way. But I was just wondering, of those 66,000 Toyota Camrys sold in the first quarter, how many of them became Uber or Lyft cars?
About 63,000.
Yeah. My question about Toyota, 2 comments. Number one, I still am trying to figure out why the hell they're losing money in North America. I don't understand what the hell's gone wrong at the company with that. Number 2 is I admire very much, even though they're talking this whole rational approach, Sam, that you're talking about of hybrids and plug-in hybrids. They are in a mad scramble to reorganize their EV development, creating a whole new company within the company, much like Ford's doing with Model E. I got so much respect for Toyota to be able to do that. But I still come back to why the hell are they losing money in North America?
They're printing new business cards for these reorganizations, and it's really taking a toll on them. All right, so we've come to the last one, okay, and we're just a few minutes over time here. So Volkswagen. So here is a giant brand in Europe that thinks it should be a giant brand in the United States, but it just can't get any traction. What's going on there?
I think by 2030, Scout will be outselling the Volkswagen brand in the U.S.
Yeah, they should call that the VW Scout if they want to beat their best volume year ever in the U.S., which is still 1970. They just, they've got a shot at it with electrics with the ID, but I don't think they're going to do it.
Well, maybe the ID Buzz will bring back the minivan.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying they've never understood our market, and even the ID Buzz, which is designed for us. We had to wait substantially longer than Europe did to get it, even though it's designed for us. And we only get one version of it. So they still do not understand, even when they target products directly at us, they don't understand our market.
Totally.
And they don't consider it as big. They don't care about it as much as Europe. To your point, Alisa, I think it's always Europe first for Volkswagen and the US. Well, we sold them Beetles starting in 1949 or whatever it was, and they can wait.
Yeah,
John, you have the last word.
Look, Volkswagen's never gotten it together since they dropped the Beetle back in the mid 70s in the U.S. market. Right now, they got a huge problem in that their ICE sales in China are falling far, far faster than their EVs sales are making it up. One little bright spot for them in North America in EVs is if you look at the group, VW, Audi, Porsche, they're number 2 to only General Motors in terms of selling EVs. Ford likes to brag that it's the number 2 brand. Well, that's true for a brand with Mach-E, Lightning, and E-Transit. But if you look at the ranking by corporations, GM number 1 in EVs in the U.S., Volkswagen Group number 2, Hyundai Group number 3, Ford's number 4.
We may see a reshuffling of that in the second half when the ramp up in Quattleon and Dearborn for the Mach-E and the Lightning gets underway. Agree,
Sam. Totally agree.
Okay, so we're done. So
you sure we didn't miss anything?
Well, we missed lots, but
we didn't talk about Tesla.
We always talk about Tesla, Sam. Even if we don't say the word Tesla, we talk about Tesla.
That's right.
Superchargers, at least, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I want to thank you all for being here today, and this is like the most far-flung group of people we've had. Alisa's in some place in northern Canada where there's snow on the ground right now.
She's near the Arctic Circle, I think.
Near the Arctic Circle, and we got Todd in Pennsylvania, and John's up north on an island. It's just crazy.
I can just keep moving east if you want. I'll just
That's real good.
One before too long.
Good seeing you guys.
Right, thanks everybody.
You guys
we'll see you next week.
Thanks for having us on.
Okay, bye.
AutoLine After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, solutions for your journey.
If you like this program and would like to learn more about the automotive industry, check out our website at autoline.tv or look for us on YouTube on the Autoline channel.